This is the information for the review for test number 2. It covers sections 3.1 through 3.3 and 4.1 and 4.3. This would be graphing and slope and writing lines, and this one is solving systems of equations. So the information here all is like problems that would have been on your homework. So the first problem, it says find the missing coordinate to complete the ordered pair. So they're giving us a y value and we need to find out what the x value is going to be. So here's our equation. Then all we're going to do is take our y value number that they give us and we're going to plug it in here for the y. So I'm just going to rewrite the problem and have 3x plus 12 times 1/2 should equal to negative 36. Okay, half of 12 would be 6, so I get 3x plus 6 equals negative 36. I'm going to add 6 to both sides, so I get 3x equals negative 42. Divide by 3, x would then equal to negative 14. So the x value we're looking for here would be negative 14, and that completes the ordered pair. That's all they're asking for. We did this when we make t-charts and we had values for x and we had to find y values. Well, now here's a y value and you have to find the x value for it. So you're just going to plug in the 1/2 into the spot for y and then figure out what the x value would come out to be. Now, on number 2 and number 3, you're asked to graph using the intercepts. And I've told you in class this would be the method that's the easiest and the quickest when this number can be divided by the number in front of the y and the number in front of the x. And in this case, 6 and negative 1 will divide evenly into negative 6. So this would be a quick, easy way to solve this problem. So the first thing, I'm going to let the x value be a 0. So if I plug in 0 minus 1y equals negative 6, this would disappear, and I just have negative 1y equal negative 6. So I'm going to divide through by a negative, which all it does is change my signs, and I come out with y equals positive 6. So this first point would be 0, 6. Then I'm going to find the other point, because this number, this would be a y-intercept. So now I'm going to find the x-intercept. So I'm going to do the same problem again, except this time I'm going to put the 0 in the y spot. So I have 6x minus 0 equals negative 6. So that's gone. So 6x equals negative 6. Divide both sides by 6. Then x equals negative 1. So now this point is going to be negative 1, 0, and then there's an x-intercept. Now you're just going to go take those 2 points and plot them on the graph. So this one will be on the y-axis at positive 6, and this will be on the x-axis at negative 1, and then you're simply going to just draw your line through those points. Now, my expectation is that you have a straight edge to draw your line with, because this is not creative art class, this is math, so it has to be a straight line. So you need something that will draw a straight line, not freehand it. Okay, on the next problem, it's exactly the same kind of problem, so we just get a little extra practice here. This time, though, they've turned, look, be careful, they've turned this around. Here's the y and here's the x. So I'm going to plug in the 0 for x, so I have 3y minus 2 times 0 equals 6. So now that's gone, and I get 3y equals 6. Divide by 3, and I'll get y equals 2. So now I plugged in for x, so my y value is a 2, so I have 0, 2. And over here, I'm going to plug in the 0 in the y spot. So you have to be careful on this one and make sure you plug it in the right place. So now I'm going to have 3 times 0 minus 2x equals 6. So this is gone. divide both sides by -2, and x equals -3. So now I have -3, 0. When I plot that on the graph, 0, 2 is going to go up here. -3, 0 will go right here. I'm going to get my straight edge and then draw your line. Now, since these graphs are only got one line on a graph, I'm not going to be a big deal about writing the equation, but if you have a graph that you have two different lines then on the graph, then you would need to identify this one as 3y minus 2x equals 6 if you had more than one line on a graph. Okay, number 4, it says first write the slope formula. That on your test, that's going to be question number 1. You're going to have to write the slope formula in question 1. So the slope formula starts with the letter M. If you leave the M off, you haven't written the formula. So there's your slope formula. So every point that you're going to be involved with, you're going to have an X and a Y, and we need 2 points. So here's a point and here's a point. It doesn't matter which one you choose to be Y2 and which one you choose to be Y1. So I like to start with the biggest number on the top, so I'd say 8 minus 2, and then on the bottom I would say 6 minus 24. Okay, whatever Y value goes on top, its X value has to go underneath it, so they have to be lined up. This would be Y2, Y2, X2, Y1, X1. Okay, then just do your math. 8 minus 2 would be 6, and a positive 6 and a negative 24 will be negative 18. That reduces, you can divide them both by 6, so this would reduce down to negative 1/3. Okay, your slope value number always has to be a fractional form. It would never be put in a decimal form when we're trying to find slope. Okay, so this would be your answer. And the answer key is attached to the back of this set of packet of information. Alright, using the slope formula, find the slope of the line that contains these 2 points. So when I go back to this slope formula, I'm going to take my Y values and they go on the top. So I'm going to have 8 minus 8, and on the bottom 5 minus 2. Now 8 minus 8 gives me 0, 5 minus 2 gives me 3, but 0 divided by anything is equal to 0. Now that tells us something special about this line. If the slope value is 0 in a graph, it means it doesn't rise any, because this is your rise and this is your run. So that would mean it doesn't go up or down any, but it goes across. Doesn't go up or down any, it goes across. So however many points you go, this will always be a horizontal line when the 0 is on the top. And I also told you that you can also know that it's horizontal because horizontal has O's in it. H-O had the O. So the slope of a horizontal line is always 0 because it has O in it. Alright, number 6. Does the line through those points have a slope? So this time I'm going to take my Y values and I can do 2 minus negative 5 over 10 minus 10. So these would become plus. So I have 7 over 0. But this time the 0 comes out on the bottom, and you can't have 0 on the bottom of a fraction, so we call this undefined. And that means the answer here would then be no, because division by 0 is undefined. So your correct answer here would be B. Now, in both of these cases, in number 5 and number 6, if you look at the problem before you start working it, and you look here and you see if the Y's are the same, okay, the answer will be 0. Okay, you're going to get 0 for your answer, not 6. That's a 0. Okay, here, just the opposite. The X's are the same. Okay, so if the X's are the same, they have to be exactly the same, then you're going to get undefined for your answer, and you don't even have to do the work. Okay? You can see what's going to happen to it. So use some math sense when you're working some of these problems. All right, number 7, it says find the slope of the line that's perpendicular. All right, so now this says, okay, first we have to find the slope for those. Then we have to come back and figure out what would it be if we want the one that's perpendicular to that. So I'm going to go back to my slope formula. M equals y2 minus y1, x2 minus x1. So I'm going to take my y values. I'll use 11 minus 8 over 7 minus 13. 11 minus 8 will be 3. 7 minus 13 would be negative 6. So reduce that down, it would be negative 1/2. Now, perpendicular lines have opposite reciprocal slope. So a perpendicular slope for this problem would mean I have to change to a positive sign, and I have to flip this and get the reciprocal. So the 2 goes to the top, the 1 goes to the bottom. So the perpendicular slope would be positive 2 over 1, which we would just say is equal to 2. So your answer here should be 2. Okay, what is the relationship if it wanted it to be parallel? Well, parallel lines have the same slope. So if it said parallel here, you would keep the same answer, so it would be negative 1/2. Alright, but this one asks for perpendicular. Alright, number 8. Using the graph below, find the slope and the y-intercept. Well, the y-intercept is easiest to pick out because it's the spot where it crosses the y-axis. So that would be right here. So my y-intercept is a point at 0, 2, and I have to list it as an ordered pair. And then I'm going to find the slope, so I'm going to count. Here's a point up here. That'd be a good point to pick. Or we can go even to this one, or we could go as far down, even farther down on the page, and I think it would go back to right about here. So any one of those points that is at the crosshairs, basically. So this one on the top would be pretty easy. I go up 3 and over 1, and they're both positive. So my slope would be just 3. Okay, rise over run, and they're both positive, so it'd be 3 over 1. So my slope is 3. Now I'm going to write my equation using my slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b. So I'm going to come back and fill in my numbers. My m is 3, so I have 3x, and my b number is the y-intercept number, so it'd just be plus 2, and this would be the answer that you're looking for. So when we're trying to write an equation, the very minimal is that we need a slope and we need a y-intercept. If we don't have those two pieces, then we have to find it some way. We have to get those information. Once we have an m and once we have a b, we just plug the numbers into the spots in the equation. So for number 9, it gives us slope. So it gives us an m, but this is a point. This is not an intercept. Intercept would have to be a 0 and a number here. Okay, if they don't give us that, then we have to go figure it out. So now I have an x and I have a y in my ordered pair. So I'm going to go back to my slope-intercept form, and I'm going to fill in the numbers that I know. I know an m, I know an x, and I know a y. So I'm going to take those pieces and go back up to the equation for a slope, and I'm going to look and find out what this number is because I don't know it. So I'm going to say y, which would be 2, equals m, 4 over 5, times 5, and you can make it 5 over 1, plus b. The 5s will divide off. They both go once into each other. So I'm left with 4 times 1. So that would be 4 plus b. Bring down the 2. I'm going to subtract 4. So I'll end up with b equals negative 2. And I want to write the equation. So I use m as 4/5 and b as -2. Then I can write y equals 4/5 x minus 2. And here would be your equation. Alright, it says find the equation for the line that contains the 2 points, and it wants you to write the answer in slope-intercept form. So the answer comes out looking like this. Now, we don't have an m given to us, and we don't have a point. We have 2 points, but we don't have a y-intercept because neither one is a 0 and then a number. So we need to first find the slope. So I'm going to use my slope formula way up here at the top first. So number 1 is find the slope. So I'm going to use these 2 points. I'm going to go 5 minus -3 over 3 minus -4. So now when I do the pluses, I'm going to have 8 over 7. Ooh, that's an ugly number for a slope. Okay, 8 over -7. That's an ugly number. It's okay though. That's what we got to work with. So this is m. Now choose a point. Choose whichever point you want. But I would probably choose this one because of the negative signs. So my x is a 3. My y is a 5. So I'll say 5 equals m 8 over 7 times x, which is 3, plus b. Now, this would be 3 over 1 when I multiply that. So now I have 5 equals 8 times 3 would be 24 over 7 plus b. Now, I'm going to have to subtract 24 over 7. So I'm going to have 5 minus 24 over 7 equals b. Okay, we need to have that whole number 5 turn into a fractional value that has a 7 on its denominator. Now, this is not going to help you to stick this in the calculator because it's going to give you a decimal value that never stops. So this is not a problem you can do with a calculator to try and get this. What we do need to do is we need to take 5 over 1 and get it to equal something over 7. So if I multiply 1 times 7, that'll give me 7. So then I multiply that same 7 on top, I'll get 35. And doesn't it make sense that if you take 35 and divide it by 7, you'll get 5? So all you have to do in this situation is take this number, multiply it times the denominator that you're trying to get, and then put it back over that number. So 5 times 7 will be 35, and you put it back over its denominator. So now I have 35 over 7 minus 24 over 7 to get my b value. So 35 minus 24 would be 9 over 7 equals to b. So now I have b, and I also have a slope number. So I'm going to write the equation. The equation should be y equals 8 over 7x plus 9 over 7. Now, this comes out to be fractions, but this is something that you have to be able to work with. So when you're working, don't just always assume that everything's going to come out to be pretty whole numbers, because it just doesn't do that way. Okay, it comes out that way. Slope is 8/7, and when you plug it back in, it's not going to give you something that's pretty. So you have to finish it out. So here would be, now this one probably will be one of the harder problems on the test, but there will be one like it. So I suggest that you work this problem several times to try and figure it out. There would have been one like that in your homework also. Okay, number 11. Find the equation for the line given here, and the points are 2, 8, and negative 4, 8. Now, we just talked about a problem like this. If the y values are the same, that means my slope is going to be 0. Okay, 8 minus 8 will be on top of the fraction, so the slope is going to be 0. 8 minus 8 over negative 4 minus 2. So I get 0 on top, negative 6 on the bottom, so my slope is 0. Now, I just plug it in. Pick a point. I guess maybe this point, because it's all positive numbers. So I'm going to have 8 equals, that's your y, x, so m would be 0 times 2 plus b. Well, this is just 0. 0 times 2 is 0. So I have 8 is equal to b. Now, when I put it in the equation, I'm going to have y equals 0x plus 8. But if 0 times x is my problem, 0 times x is still 0. So I don't need that. All I need to do is say y equals 8. And the other thing we know, if the slope is 0, it has to be a horizontal line. And a horizontal line will always be a y equals line. So this is horizontal, so it has to be a y equals line. Okay? Number 12. Put the equation in slope-intercept form and identify the slope and the y-intercept. So that means I need to get y by itself and then have it to look like y equals mx plus b. I want it to be in slope-intercept form, just like this. So I'm going to move the 7x over. I'll get negative 4y equals negative 7x minus 12. I'm going to divide by negative 4 in each place. Then I get y equals, negative divided by negative would still give me positive 7/4 x. Negative 12 divided by negative 4 would be a positive 3. So this number right here is the m number, and this number right here is the b number. So when we write a b number and intercept, we have to write it as an ordered pair, so that would be 0, 3, and my slope number would be 7/4. Okay, so this is a problem that everybody should get right. You just have to be careful with your signs. Okay, number 13 is just asking us to graph. So if I graph this line, I'm going to be using m as 2/1. B is going to start is 0, negative 5. So it's already in slope-intercept form. So I'm going to plot 0, negative 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 would be down here. And from there, I'm going to do what the slope tells me to do. It's the boss. So it goes up and over, up and over, up and over. As many points as you can get, it's going to make your line turn out a whole lot better on your graph. So use your straight edge, draw your line, and again, if we had more equations, we'd say y equals 2x minus 5. Okay, number 14, we're going to use the graphing again. Now the instructions here say put each one in slope-intercept form. Well, if I look at this first equation, 6 can divide by both 3 and 2. So this problem would work quicker and easier if we just use our two intercepts. So for this problem right here, I'm going to make me a set of ordered pairs using my zeros, and I can do that pretty quick. So if I'm trying to find those 0 numbers, if I let x be 0, I'm just going to cover up the x. Okay, I'm going to cover that up and work with what's left. So I'd have negative 3y equals 6. So I'm going to divide both sides by a negative number. So 6 divided by negative 3 would give me negative 2. Over here, I'm going to plug in the 0 for y, so I'm going to cover up the y number. And then I'll have 2x equals 6. sides by 2, I'll end up with positive 3. So those two ordered pairs give me enough information to draw that line. That's easy to do. So I'm going to go ahead and plot those on here. 0, negative 2, and 3, 0. Okay, so I have one line. Now, I'm solving a system of equations here, so I have to have two lines, and I'm trying to see where do these lines cross. So now I'm going to take this one, and I am going to move this one to slope-intercept, so I'm going to keep this y here, and I'm going to move the 5x out of the way. So I'll end up with y equals negative 5x minus 2. So my y-intercept will be 0, negative 2. And my slope will be the number next to x, so negative 5 over 1. So I'm going to start at negative 2 right there. And my slope, now the problem here is I don't have enough spaces to go down 5. So what I can do is I can turn my negative sign to the bottom of the equation, and that way I can count up, but I know it's still going to have to lean to the left because I'm a negative slope. So I'm going to count up 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but I'm going to go to the left 1. If I went down 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 over 1, it would still line up with that graph. So you can see the spot where these two lines cross is going to be our answer because we're solving a system of equations. Anytime we solve a system of equations, we're trying to find the point where they would cross. X marks the spot. So right here, you're going to label your answer right there on the graph next to that dot where they cross. So here it would be at negative 2, 0. Now, they don't all cross at a y-intercept. It just happens to be on this problem. So your answer will be right there on the graph where I can find it. Alright, number 15, 16, 17, and 18, you're asked to solve it without graphing. Now there's two methods to use. Substitution means we're going to take and replace one equation and put it into the other one. So when you do substitution, you have to try and find one variable that sits by itself. Well, the x is not necessarily by itself because there's a 2y with it, but if I move the 2y out of the way, the x will be by itself. And so that's what I want to do. I want to keep this x right where it is. Now, any other number that happens to be a coefficient that sits next to an x or a y, if that happens, you would never choose that because then you're going to end up with fractions, and you don't want that to happen. So I'm going to take this bottom equation, I'm going to move the 2y over so that I end up with x equals negative 2y minus 2. Now, this is my substitution. This is my equivalence. So when I go and look at any other equation and see an x value, I can replace it with this. I can change it and plug it in there. So I'm going to go back up here to this x right there, and I'm going to plug this value in. So I get 7, negative 2y minus 2. Then I write the rest of the problem. Plus 4y equals 96. Now all I have to work with are y's. So distribute the 7, negative 14y minus 14 plus 4y equals 96. Combine these two y values together first. So negative 14 and a positive 4 would be negative 10y. Now I'm going to add 14. Joseph corrected me in class today. I added wrong, so this would be 110. Then I'm going to divide by negative 10. So y is going to equal to negative 11. Now go back and plug the y value back in. The easiest place to plug it in would be take it right back up here to this. So take your y value, go over here and plug it into this. So I get x is equal to negative 2 times my y, negative 11, minus 2. So this would be negative 22 plus 2, oh, positive 22, sorry. Positive 22 and a minus 2. Read my signs wrong. So x would equal positive 20. Check your answer on the back, and that is correct. That would be 20 comma negative 11 for your answer. Now when you solve a system, you have to have both x and y because it is an ordered pair. We just don't have to put it on the graph here to find that out. And if you look at those numbers, that would be a big graph to have to go figure out where those numbers would be, and our graph isn't that big. So these are done algebraically, so we don't have to stick them on a graph. Now, the next 3 problems are asked to be done by elimination. This is kind of the easiest way to do it. You notice the A's are lined up and the B's are lined up. So we need to make sure they line up over the top of each other. If they don't, then you have to switch maybe one of them around so that you get things in the right place. So here, if I want to eliminate the A's, I'm going to have to multiply the top by 7 and the bottom by 2. That way they'd both be 14. But over here, if I look at the B's, all I would have to do is multiply the top by 2, because that would already give me a 10, and this one's already a 10. So the easiest way to do it would be to multiply so that you eliminate these. So I'm going to take the top equation and I'll multiply it by 2. That would give me 4a plus 10b equals 16. Then take my bottom one, 7a minus 10b equals 6. Now when I draw my line, I get 11a, I'm just going to add them together, equals 22. Divide by 11, so a equals 2. Now I've got to go back and stick it back in. So when I go back and stick it back in, I can pick either one of those. I probably pick the top one because the numbers are a little bit smaller with the A and the B. So I'm going to go plug in for the A. I'm going to plug it in and have 2 times 2 plus 5b equals 8. So I have 4 plus 5b equals 8. I'm going to subtract 4. So I get 5b equals 4. Divide both sides by 5. So I get b is equal to 4 over 5. Now I want my answer written as an ordered pair. So an ordered pair says I'm going to write the A number first and the B number second, because they'd always be written in alphabetical order. So this would be one answer. I would accept a decimal value on this answer because it would be 0.8 and we'd be locating it somewhere on a graph, but we're not going to have to locate it on a graph. So I would accept a decimal value on this answer if that's the case. Alright, here, let's see, what could I do? If I want to eliminate x's, I could multiply the top by 3. If I'm going to eliminate the y's, all I would need to do for the y's to eliminate would be to get one of them to be negative. So I can do that quickly and easily by just multiplying through by a -1. I could do it in either place, it doesn't matter, but that would give me opposite signs and 1s in front of both of the y values. So I think that would be the best shot, is to take this bottom one and multiply it by a -1. Then I'll have x plus y equals 98, and 3x minus y equals -14. So now when I add my x's together, I'd get 4x equals 84. Subtract 98 minus 14. I'm going to divide by 4. So x is going to equal to 21. Now go back and plug it back in. Maybe plug it in the top. That's pretty easy, because that would be 21 plus y equals 98, and then I'm just going to subtract 21. So subtract 21, and I get y equals 9 minus 2, so that would be 7. So my answer here is 21, 8 minus, yeah. So my answer here would be 21, 77. Okay, Big numbers, that wouldn't be a place that you would want to locate on a graph because it's a long ways out. Alright, this last problem has to do with a special answer. We talked about this with equations, and now we're talking about it with systems of equations. If I want to eliminate the x's, I would have to multiply the top one by 6 to get it to be 42. If I want to eliminate y's, I still need to multiply by 6. So it doesn't matter, I'm going to multiply this top one by 6, then I get positive 42x minus 48y equals positive 30, because 6 times 5 would be 30. But look what happens. All my x's cancel, all my y's cancel, so I have 0 on the left, but then the 30s will also cancel, so I have 0 equals 0. Here's where you have to make a decision. Is it true or false? Okay, it's true. So if it's a true statement, that means one line would lay on top of each other. So on a graph, you would have one line, and then you'd lay the other one right on top of it. So on those lines, every point along there would touch. So we would have an infinite amount of points that would touch. So here, our answer is infinite solutions. So just like when we worked with equations, if the variables fall off and your statement that's left is true, you have just an infinite number of answers. We call it here infinite solutions because that means we would have more dots than we would be able to count that they have in common. Now, in the same respect, if you do a problem like this and this 0 equals 0 is not true, say you get 0 equals negative 2, okay, that's a false statement. So if your statement comes out to be false, you say the problem has no solution. So it just depends on what your outcome is for your statement here. If it's true, your answer is infinite solutions. If it's false, your answer would be no solution. So that's a special case, and if we looked at it on a graph, this one would mean the lines would be parallel. They would never cross each other. We had that in our notes the other day on Thursday. Alright, the last 4 problems are word problems based on systems of equations. We did these in class, so we worked a lot of these, and I think it really helped most of you to kind of put everything into perspective about how to solve systems of equations. So in a system of equations problem, you're going to have 2 different items, so you'll always have two different things, 2 different variables, but you're going to have to make 2 equations with those 2 variables so that you can solve it. So here we identify we've got free throws and we got 2-point field goals in the basketball game. So first of all, you must make a statement that tells me what they stand for. So I'm going to let F equal the number of free throws, because this Aaron guy is shooting 13 shots, and some of them are free throws and some of them are field goals. Alright, so I'm going to let G equal the number of field goals that he shoots. So I know that the total of these shots has to add up to 13. So F plus G has to equal 13. Now, the point value, or the value system for these, will determine his number of points. So a free throw is worth 1 point. So I have 1 times F, 1 point for each free throw. A field goal is worth 2 points, so I have 2 for each field goal, and all of that totaled out to be 24 points. Now we need to eliminate a variable. Here, since the F's both have a 1 on the front of them, I would just multiply. I'd multiply that top equation by a negative sign and just make a -1 there. Multiply it through, so I would have negative F minus G equals negative 13, and on the bottom I'd have F plus 2G equals 24. So my F's are going to cancel out, and I have 2G's minus 1G. That's just going to equal G. and 24 minus 13 would equal 11. Now plug it back in. If they have to total 13 and 11 of those are field goals, then free throws would be left to be 13 minus 11, so free throws would equal to 2. Then I'm going to ask you to write a little sentence. There were 2 field goals, and you can put FG, and 11 field goals and 2 free throws, and you can call them FTs because that's what they are in basketball terms. Okay? A little short sentence that states what it is. You don't have to write a dissertation, but you do need to tell me what they stand for, and then I need to know that those are field goals and free throws. Now, number 20 is like a homework problem. It's exactly the same kind of problem, but they're giving you big numbers, so you're just going to pull your calculator out and do the same thing. So here they say the construction job site has heavy equipment operators that are paid $126 a day and a general labor that's paid $86 a day. So we have 2 different kinds of workers, heavy equipment and general laborers. So my variables I'm going to use, let H equal the heavy equipment. Okay, the number of heavy equipment people. Never heavy equipment guys or girls. And G will equal the number of general laborers, and I'll just put general down here. Now I know it says they have 33 people altogether that are hired, so this H number plus the G number has to total 33. See, it works just like this problem up here. Now we figure out how much. So a heavy equipment person makes 126, so I got 126H, plus a general laborer makes 86G, and the total amount of money they had to pay out was $38.78. So the only difference is this problem has to have a calculator to work it. So work it out on a calculator. And where did my calculator go? Okay. So work it out. We'll have to do some numbers here. Don't have it. So I'm going to multiply through, let's see, the easiest number would multiply, the smaller number would be 86. So I'm going to multiply through by 86 on the top and then put a negative on it. So negative 86. So this would be negative 86H minus 86G equals, and somewhere I need to multiply 86 times 33, so you can use your calculator to do that. 24, looks like 2838. Looks like the numbers I get. Okay, on the bottom I'm going to have 126H plus 86G equals 3878. Okay? Oh, this will be negative. Negative 2838. Now I'm going to draw my lines, so my G's are going to cancel. This will turn out to be 40H equals, subtract here, that'll be 1040, and divide by 40. So 1040 divided by 40, 2824, it'd be 26. So H equals 26 workers, and it has to total 33. So 33 minus 26 will give you how many general laborers? 33 minus 26 would be 7. So G would equal to 7. Then you write a little short sentence. There were 26 heavy equipment, HEQs, and 7 GLs, general laborers. And that would be fine on that. Abbreviation right there is fine. I just don't have enough space. Alright, 21 is like a homework classwork problem that we did on our notes. The sum of two numbers, that should be S on there, two numbers is 77. Alright, so I need two numbers to add together because that's what sum means. So this time you can just use X equals one number and Y equals the other. But we need to designate because they're calling one of them smaller and one of them larger. So I would say let X be the smaller number and Y equal the larger number. Now when I write this second one out, it's going to be a little different. Two numbers, X plus Y, has to add up to 77. Okay, but this says this 3 times the smaller is subtracted from the larger. So that means the larger number has to go first. So it has to be Y minus 3X equals 9. Now the problem here is the numbers don't line up right. So this bottom one, you need to turn it around, but the negative still has to stick on front of the 3. So I keep the X plus Y equals 77 and turn the bottom one to be negative 3X plus Y equals 9. So when you turn it, that negative sign has to stay in front of the 3. Now we can just multiply one of them by a negative, and that'll get rid of our Y values. So like we had on another one up there. So I'm going to multiply by a negative 1. And when I multiply, it's just going to change my signs. So I'm going to call that negative X minus Y equal negative 77. Now I'm working here. Negative plus a negative, so negative 3 and a negative 1 would be negative 4. X. My Y's cancel out. So 77 minus 9 would be negative 68. Divide both sides by negative 4, and X is going to equal negative 17. Then we have to go back and plug it back in right here. If X equals negative 17, is it negative right there? Yep, negative 17. And yep, that's right. And then when I plug it back in, what's going to happen? Negative 17, so 77 minus negative 17, we're going to have to add that. That answer key number is wrong right there. So no, that's right. Oh, positive. Negative by negative is positive. Why didn't I catch that? Okay, X is a positive 17, and then when I plug it back in here, that has to add up, so subtract 17 from 77, Y would equal 60. So yeah, the answer key is right. And then you can say the numbers are 17 and 60. Didn't get my sign right. Okay, so that's one like we did in class for an example. And now the last problem is one that involves distance and motion, and we talked about these specifically in class. These involve a formula that's rate times time equals distance. Now the rate in both of these cases, in this case, involves two things. The boat is moving, and downstream infers that there's a current that's also moving the boat. So that means our rate is always going to be including both the speed of the boat and the speed of the current that's happening. Now, downstream, that current would be helping us. Upstream, the current would be hindering our way because we're swimming against the flow of the water. So when we do upstream and downstream, we'll determine how we set up our problem. So I always put downstream in the top and upstream in the bottom. So when you fill out your chart, put your downstream on the top, or you're with the wind. It depends. If we're flying in a plane, we would have with the wind and against the wind. So downstream is going to involve the boat speed plus the current speed. So R stands for the speed of the vehicle. C stands for the speed of the water. Okay, down here it's working against us, so it'll be r minus c. Then you look at the time. With the water, time is always shorter than against the water. Okay, swimming upstream is going to take you longer than swimming downstream. So it took downstream 12 hours, it took upstream 14 hours, and the distance was still 336 miles. That's a long ways, especially in a boat. Okay, now if we use our rate times time equals distance, we're going to take the columns and multiply them. So from one equation, I'm going to have r plus c times 12 equal 336. Put it in parentheses. Then underneath it, I'm going to have r minus c times 14 equals 336. Now, don't multiply, okay? Don't distribute right here. Don't distribute. Okay? Here's what we're going to do. We're going to divide off the 12 and divide off the 14. Okay? When we divide those off, we're left with a much simpler equation to work with. So the 12's divide off, I just have r plus c. So this becomes r plus c equals 336 divided by 12. So I'll have to go off and divide it. You get your calculator. 24 will come out to be 28. And then here, when I divide by 14, r minus c is going to come out to be 24. Now my plus c and my minus c are just going to cancel each other out. So add up your r's. That's one r and one more r makes 2 r's equals 52. Divide both sides by 2. So r is going to equal 26. So the speed of the boat would be 26 miles per hour. And the current, if they have to add up to 28, then that means the current has to be 2. 28 minus 26, so the current would have to be 2 miles per hour. That means it's not flowing very quickly. Then you write a short statement. The boat goes 26 miles per hour and the water is 2 miles per hour. Okay? So, word problems, systems of equations, graphing lines, then we have writing equations, we have finding slopes, we have to know perpendiculars and parallels, and we have to know a slope formula, we have to graph lines, and we know a y equals mx plus b formula. So you got a lot of information to know on this. So I hope you'll be prepared.